But now let's go from one First Amendment violation to another. Do we do the soccer Kirsten Hening and
Sure.
Virginia Tech? So I did
Same
a video
state,
on
by the way. Realize we have a cop in Virginia fired for political reasons. Last week we discussed a medical student kicked out for political reasons. And now we have a female college player who couldn't play on her soccer team for political reasons.
So
the state of Virginia needs some help. Governor Blackface needs to pay more attention.
Well, it's confession through projection. Everybody's racist, and everybody who's accusing others of racism seem to have the ugliest history, from our own PM to Norfolk. For anybody who doesn't know the facts of the case, I did a video on it the other day. Female soccer player Kirsten Hening, apparently a good soccer player. So I sort of skipped over a portion of the lawsuit where her numbers were there. She was playing a lot. They were playing her because she was good. For whatever the reason, this is life on campus now. The women's soccer team decides that they need to get pro-social justice. And I say this without judgment to social justice. It's just that when you're on a soccer team, you don't expect politics to become an element of what you are compelled to do on a team. But they decide to go social justice. They decide to actively decide how they're going to support BLM, et cetera, et cetera. Kirsten doesn't... She doesn't necessarily support them, but she doesn't feel that this should be even part of the game. So when the whatever division or conference decides that they're going to make I don't want to say a unity prayer, a unity statement before their games that they all agree on, but don't run it by the players, and they all have to say this unity statement and then take a knee before the game. And Kirsten doesn't. She doesn't take a knee. She says in that game at the halftime, even though she was playing well and the game was going well, she gets berated by her coach. I forget his first name now, but his nickname is Chugger Adair. And when I say this guy looks like the guy from The Hangover, Step Brothers, the guy who always plays a jerks in movies, it's because he does. But bottom line, she says she gets berated by him during that game. Things go downhill from there. He berates her during practices. He doesn't play her anymore. He changes her position. She feels specifically targeted, and she feels it's because of her political views. She apparently overhears members of the administration of the team saying, "Oh, you probably have some racists on the team who think all lives matter." And then eventually it becomes so insufferable, she resigns from the team. Files a lawsuit, First Amendment lawsuit, basically saying state actor coach enacted reprisals against me because of my expression of my First Amendment rights, which is to not take a knee. And that's basically it. The lawsuit, I read the lawsuit. I know what I think. My only question is going to be, how do you what is the threshold to make the evidence of intentions? Because this is effectively only a question of intentions. It's going to be, how do you prove that whatever she experienced was as a direct result and a conscientious decision of the state actor to sanction her for her expression of her own political beliefs?
Well, one is I assume their defense will be that they did not constructively discharge her from the team, that she quit. And the question will be whether the harassing atmosphere caused her to get to that place where that was her only practicable alternative. But I think that otherwise it's a discovery case because, they can argue their motive had nothing to do with it, that they were just criticizing soccer, that had nothing to do with politics. The timing is coincidental. Other people's interpretations is just interpretive. But I think that, she has plenty of evidence that it's the other way, given the timing of the issue, given statements other people made. So I think that it just reflects the insanity of what's taking place. It's one thing to want to be political in your sport, which by itself is, in my view, a poor decision. But even if you're going to do so, and by the way, this is at the same time the International Olympics Committee considers it so offensive to sport to inject politics into it that they are banning people from taking the knee during the Olympics. They're like, or raising the fist. They're like, none of this. They're like, save your politics for politics, save sports for sports, and save sports from politics. And this is just an extreme example of it. But the fact that you have, Virginia Tech, located in a part of the state that's actually quite conservative, not the campus itself, gives you an idea of how bad it is. That a female soccer player who just doesn't want to use her sport to propagandize a political message she doesn't support or doesn't want to be a part of. She doesn't want to. Her position was Black Lives Matter, but the group BLM is not in a group she agrees with because they believe in things like destroying the nuclear family, and a lot of people have problems with that.
Yeah,
They're a bunch of grifters, BLM, bunch of grifters. I know they never show up in any major case I've been involved with. I've had real cases of abuse, often racially tinged abuse, and BLM's nowhere to be found. They only want the bogus cases. They only want the Ben Crump race grifting, race baiting cases, so they can lie to the world about the situation and cause more division, because that's their goal. Their goal is revolution. They say so overtly. Now, in the interim, they'd like to have 5 houses, if you wouldn't mind helping them out.
Her explanation was those were for her family. That was her family money. There's nothing wrong with having money. She considers it to be her family money.
Nobody can account for a lot of the money. I mean, one of them just is under indictment for doing a bunch of funny stuff with the money. Most of the money has not flowed down to the community at large. It's just kind of vanished. And so there's a lot of questions about BLM. BLM is, a radical group, at least in theory, that promotes its own interest above the interest of the community they claim to represent, and they have some really radical ideas that most people don't agree with.
That was what was specifically alleged in the lawsuit. She says, I believe in, I believe in social justice. I just don't believe in BLM tactics, which often involve violent riots and their self-proclaimed destruction of the nuclear family, which, goes against her views. What I find totally shocking in the lawsuit is the allegations of what goes on in the soccer teams. Like they discuss and sit there to say how they're going to promote social justice and require the players to wear, they were discussing a BLM armband or a BLM logo on their shirts, or to take the names on their shirts of victims of alleged police brutality, something along those lines. When you read about what's going on campus, just to read about it alone, setting aside what happens in this lawsuit, is eye-opening and shocking enough to people who don't already know that it's going on. But on a lawsuit basis, I don't, what do you need to prove? How do you go about succeeding on this claim? And then what would be the sanctions? She's asking in the lawsuit for First Amendment training for the coach. So, I mean, as far as that goes, is that a recourse that has ever been awarded in a lawsuit? Or
you have broad capabilities. I mean, it's why the Minneapolis police force is now under federal investigation, because they want to federalize the police force. This goes back to Obama, and it's because of how much discretionary remedy you have under the Civil Rights Act. So, I mean, remember, they bust kids and directed where kids could go to school under the same principle. So, yeah, they can do a broad range of things in terms of what they could put in declaratory relief, injunctive relief, reinstatement, and potentially monetary relief, as the case may be. So I think she's got a good enough claim to get to discovery, and my guess is discovery will be very interesting. So if they were smart, they'd just, fire that coach, reinstate her, and move on. But who knows?
Okay, so we'll see where it goes. I mean, it goes to discovery? Is there going to be a motion to dismiss on the basis that not state actor, or didn't state a claim in law because whatever? I mean, do they go through with that, or do they just try to settle this?
They would have to say there was no way it could be a constructive termination, no way that these actions could be considered adverse environment. I think they'll have difficulty with that. So she should be able to get past the motion to dismiss into discovery, because she's alleged enough facts with reasonable inferences to it that this was a state act. Clearly, a coach is a state actor. People don't know. If you're a state coach, you're a state actor. The public school, university, doesn't matter.
And they allege the law in the lawsuit. These are things which, some allegations are allegations that need to be proven, but I sort of presume that they're not going to misrepresent the state of the law when they say a coach is a state actor. I mean, so operate on that basis. The question is going to be evidentiary as to whether or not, they're going to say maybe she quit because she was bad. We sidelined her because she wasn't performing. And then it's going to be sort of like the discussion with Colin Kaepernick as to what came first, the benching or the kneel.
And then it just becomes a fact question for discovery, because that's facts in controversy.